Hey folks, welcome back to Challenged. Well, it's been about 6 months since I made my last mortgage stock video, so I figured it's time to do it again. I'm going to try to do these about every 6 months just to keep it interesting. Make sure you stick around to the end because I'm going to answer the question, would I do this again? Is it worth it? Do I think it's worth it? And would I run this experiment starting now? If you're new to the channel or you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, let me give you a little bit of background. Back in 2020, when the world was shutting down and everything got kind of crazy, the stock market just tanked. And right around that time, I was thinking, oh, there's some good buys within the market. I need some cash, and I didn't have enough cash really to go after a lot of these deals. So I knew that I had a paid off house and I could probably borrow against it. So I went to the bank, I got a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at 3.125% for $200,000. My house at the time appraised for $600,000, so I wasn't over leveraged by any means. But that rate that I got was near the historic lows, so I felt pretty darn good about that. My intent with this money was going to be to invest it in the stock market in a combination of common stocks, preferred stocks, and baby bonds to make that $200,000 pay for my mortgage payments. So that is the principal as well as the interest. And if you're thinking to yourself, Garrett, you are an absolute idiot. Why would you borrow against a paid off house? Well, let's take a look at this slightly a different way. Let's just say I was going out on the market and I was going to buy a $600,000 home and I had all the money in cash so that I could pay the whole thing off in cash, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to pay $400,000 down and take a $200,000 mortgage on it at a very low rate. And then I'm going to use the rest of the cash, my cash that I had left over, to invest and hope that, I could get a return that exceeds that 3.125%. This is the exact same scenario. These are the same thing. One sounds a little bit better than the other, but they are exactly the same thing. Trust me, guys, I've read all of the comments, good, bad, ugly, and there's a lot of them. It gets really interesting reading through some of those. No, I'm not single-handedly going to cause the Great Depression to happen because of this strategy. I am not condoning this for anyone else to do. This is an experiment for me. It's a long-term experiment. I love doing things that are a little bit outside of the box, but at the same time, it's always a calculated risk. I do not want to over leverage myself. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, whether it's business or anything. I never want to borrow too much that I can't handle it if the whole thing goes sideways. So that's the whole reason I only took 1/3 of the value of my home. All right, let's get into what I have. Here are the stocks, bonds, and preferreds that I have. And it's about 3 pages worth of them. So I try not to put any more than 2 to 3% into any one stock, bond, doesn't matter what it is. But here's what I have. It does change over time because I've been loading up a lot more in the baby bonds as well as the preferreds, and most of those have some kind of a call date within them, which means that I get that money back during that call period and then I can reinvest. So when I started this whole thing, interest rates were really low. So I was trying to match it with securities that I felt were relatively safe that exceeded my interest rate that I was paying and covered that principal as well. So I needed to get a return that was in the 5.25% range. But as we all know, interest rates have climbed, inflation has climbed, everything has climbed, everything's gone up. So the beauty of this is as those interest rates go up, the stocks, the bonds, the new issues, all of that, they adjust to give you that same rate. So if it was 5% back in the day, it's probably more like 7 or 8% now. Well, I didn't throw all of my money straight into the market right away, which is probably what I should have done. I've been adding to it over time. And again, because I've got these preferreds and baby bonds with call dates, I get some of that money back every so often so I can reinvest in current things. So the nice part as time goes on, not only do I get dividend increases on some of the common stocks that I have, but these new things that I'm able to go into because of the way interest rates are right now, I'm able to lock in higher rates. Well, I'm matching that still against a 30-year fixed term rate of 3.125%. So it means that it gets a lot easier to make that mortgage payment as time goes on and all of these rates go up. Well, let's go over the specifics of what I've got. So I took out a $200,000 mortgage, but the actual mortgage proceeds were $197,460. So I didn't get the full $200,000 because there are fees associated with getting a loan. But I am 100% invested. And remember, I said I did not get all of that money invested all at once. It took a couple of years for me to get it invested. So I used a little bit of that money that I had set back to make those mortgage payments. So while I have all of my cash invested, it's not the $197,000. It's actually $192,391.64. This translates to an annual dividend of $16,329. And of course, my monthly mortgage payment is $856.75, but my monthly dividends, if you divide the annual by 12, is $1,360.75. So I'm covering that mortgage payment by 158.8%. So the mortgage is easily covered. The nice thing is then I have money that I can reinvest in all of this. Well, if you notice, the total invested again is $192,391. But last time that I made a video, 6 months ago, it was right around $190,000. So that grew by a couple $1,000s, and the whole reason behind that is because I have money left over after making that mortgage payment that I reinvest. So that's going to be kind of the fun thing, is to see both of those grow, that total invested. Eventually, I'm going to get to the point where I have over 100% invested, and that again is because I'm taking all of that excess and putting it back in. And I'm not dependent upon this income other than to make the mortgage payment. So I'm going to answer that question. Would I do this again? Has this so far been a success? I've been at this for a little over three and a half years at this point, and so far it is definitely a success. I haven't lost my butt completely. If things go down, if the value of this goes down, does it really matter? No, unless those things that I've invested in stop paying a dividend or they stop paying interest. And if you're wondering what the portfolio value is at this point, it's $193,963.19. And of course, I've been paying that mortgage down this whole time as well. So it's down to $186,229.72. So the value does exceed the mortgage that is currently there. I don't want to clear anything out. Again, this is so long term. Would I do this again? Heck yes. Absolutely. Me, I would do this again. I wouldn't recommend it for anyone else unless you are very risk tolerant or you have the capital behind it to cover anything or those mortgage payments if this whole thing went bad. Knowing what I know now, I probably should have borrowed a little more. I could have bumped that $200,000 up to $300,000. And the whole reason behind this is with inflation, you have to remember, at the time that I took this out, we were at historic lows for borrowing, and the Fed rate was around 0%. So it can't get any lower than that. It just can't get lower than that. And mortgage rates were at historic lows. When you're only paying 3.125%, it's very, very cheap money. The reason it works is because I locked in that extremely low rate. Would I do it today knowing that mortgage rates are in the 7.25%? Heck no, absolutely not. Because if, let's just say, the Fed funds rate goes down and those mortgage rates go down, but I'm locked in to this mortgage rate that's up here, I've got a challenge to make those payments at that point. I could refinance, but there's a cost associated with it. Every time you refinance, it's probably another $2,500 to do. You have to make up for that. So would I start this experiment today? No, there's just too much risk associated with it. It's one thing when the Fed fund rate is at 0% and it can't go lower, that's a great time to lock in. But when it's up quite a ways, probably closer to what normal should be, and it could fluctuate. It could go up, it could go down. I just don't want to get caught in the middle of this thing, you know. It could really go bad. It'd be a lot more of a struggle to find those securities that can make that mortgage payment and that interest payment and have the growth that happens with all of this. Back in the day, I was looking at it and everyone was talking about bailouts and all of that kind of stuff. And when you pump money, you know, you're just printing dollars and you're putting it into the economy. At some point, it's going to cause inflation. And that's exactly what happened. Regardless, this whole thing is just a fun experiment. And hey, I appreciate you all coming along for this ride. I hope you get a little bit of entertainment out of it. I don't know if you learn anything or not. I'm not recommending this necessarily, but it's just neat to see a case study. Not a lot of people do this that's just, a layman like you and me. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to hit that like button down below as well as subscribe. Stay challenged, my friends.